I wanted to start out by saying that this story is 100% true. I know people will say that to add immersion, but it really is, and this is the only place I knew where to post it at. Do I believe everything that happened actually happened? Not necessarily. I'm as skeptical as you can be, and I welcome any explanation as to how the events that occurred were not supernatural. It could have been an elaborate prank on behalf of my friends, but there are several reasons why I find that hard to believe. Mass hysteria, maybe? Who knows? Anyway, here's the story. I enlisted in the Army in 2009 and had my advanced individual training in Fort Huachuca, Arizona. Pretty much any soldier stationed at Fort Huachuca, often named Fort Huigacha, has above average intelligence. Most of the MSOs require a very high ASVAB score. Needless to say, the friends I made were a unique bunch, many of us gaming nerds. Huachuca is about 20 minutes from the Mexican border and about 40 minutes from the infamous Tombstone, Arizona. One day we were bored and swapping ghost stories. One of my buddies had bought a Ouija board at Walmart for us to play around with. We'll call him Jackson to protect his identity. I'm not sure Jackson believed in the supernatural, but when your disposable income to free time ratio is skewed horribly in the wrong direction, you buy stupid shit to entertain yourself with. Jackson and I attempted to use the Ouija board in our barracks as the base is extremely old and rife with hauntings. Unfortunately, the barracks we had recently moved to were brand new, so the Ouija didn't work. Tired of strip clubs and flirting with the Mexican border, we hungered for a unique adventure. I brought up the idea of traveling to the nearby Tombstone. Jackson lit up when I mentioned this, as he had just heard a story of a haunted house in Tombstone and he wanted to check it out. We came to a quick, ghost hunting consensus and invited our buddy Thompson along for the ride. We arrived at Tombstone shortly after dark. It was not quite how I expected it. I had pictured a literal ghost town, with a few dilapidated Wild West buildings and the obligatory tumbleweed blowing through the street. But this was not the case at all. Even at night, it's basically a normal town, with a few historical buildings and your tourist traps. In addition to the downtown stretch, they have a residential area just like any other small town in America. It was in the residential area that we began hunting for the supposed ghost house. We got to the area that we thought it was in, but weren't sure which house it was. After a few minutes of circling the block, the group decided to take a break to piss. Everybody went their separate directions to pee, but I could not find a place private enough, so I didn't go. I was the second person back in the car. I climbed into the back seat and I asked Jackson, "Where's Thompson?" "I don't know, he's been gone for a while. I'll text him," said Jackson. All of a sudden, Thompson, looking whiter than he normally does, comes sprinting towards the car and frantically tries to open the passenger side door. Jackson calmly unlocks it and he lets him in and he asked, "What happened?" "Dude, you're not going to believe this shit," Thompson gasped. His southern drawl tightened like a cello string. "I was in this house that looked abandoned, right? So I go in and I look around, and I decide to have a smoke. I looked down at my phone to text you guys and tell you about it when all of a sudden, something touched my shoulder." "Holy shit, what was it?" I asked. Nothing was there, and I just sprinted back to the car. Pumped with adrenaline, curiosity, and stupidity, I suggested that we go full mystery machine and park in a nearby lot and use the Ouija board from inside the car. As soon as we could get parked, roughly half a block away, we anxiously pulled out the Ouija board and put it in our laps. As the person designated to ask questions, I began. "Is there anyone there?" To my disbelief, the piece started moving. It slowly but surely moved towards yes. Were you the thing that touched Thompson? Yes, it replied again. Are you the ghost in the haunted house that we were going to visit? No, it answered. Now this is what took me by surprise. If this was one of the others trying to scare us, why wouldn't they take the obvious bait? Claim to be the ghost that we saw and commence scaring the shit out of us. I mean, that's like a Nigerian scammer writing you about your long-lost fortune, and then responding no when you ask if he's able to give you $6 million instead of $5.5 million. At this point, I had a flashback of just every creepy Ouija experience that I'd ever seen or read about. They always started with some cliché questions like, how did you die? And ended with a flurry of telekinetic activity. I wanted this session to be different. After all, we were a hand-picked bunch of intelligent people, not a group of scared teenagers. If this was real, I wanted the specter to break history with me. So I took a moment and I started thinking, what would I want to know about a ghost? What questions can I ask that aren't cliché? What can I ask that will break the linear decision tree where all the Ouija boards end up telling you is that they want you dead? I realized that any questions I asked had to be extremely specific, and offer no chance for creepy deviation in the answer. I suppose I could have asked for the coefficient of pi, and I could just respond with "die bitch" over and over, but I had faith in the ghost. So the first question I asked was, name one thing the building you touched Thompson in was used for. The piece slowly started to move again. Ha, I thought to myself, this thing can't possibly get creepy from this question. I bet it'll say like general store or the post office or something. Slaughter. Pucker factor 9. Good game, ghost. Have an upvote, I guess. But seriously, I again realized this was probably not one of us joking around because slaughter has not been used as a common term since the 1800s. You just don't log onto the news and see, man slaughtered today in a small house in Arizona, and details at 11. If my friends were pulling the prank, they would have used a word like murder or something. Intrigued, I decided to ask it why it touched Thompson. Help, it replied. Thinking this would lead somewhere creepy, I asked when it died instead. 1867. I again started to think of questions I could ask that no one ever thinks to ask a ghost. I remember hearing on a website that you're never supposed to ask a Ouija board about God. So I did the only logical thing that an atheist would do at that point. Why aren't I supposed to ask you about God? No, came a quick, terse reply. So I tried to be more creative how I asked it. If you were playing World of Warcraft, what class would you play? It's gonna say Undead Warlock, I guarantee. No! It snapped again. It was weird, despite being an entity that couldn't directly talk to us. You could almost sense its tone of voice through how it moved the piece. I wanted to continue asking it questions, but our first sergeant interrupted the session with a frantic phone call. He ordered all of us back to base for 100% accountability due to someone losing their weapon. Disappointed, we packed up and headed back. The next day, we were telling the others in our platoon about our experience the night before. After many bullshit and eye rolls, another soldier named Green showed interest. We decided to try to talk to the ghost again and take Green with us. He had an SUV which would give us some more room to set up the board. As a soldier, my first instinct was to not only plan our arrival and departure time, but our safety contingencies as well. This was especially on my mind after the previous night. I briefed the group in advance that if anything creepy happened, we were better off with a pre-identified plan on what to do so as to take the spirits by surprise. Our ghost hunting SOP was as follows. At approximately 2100 hours, we will depart from Tombstone. This will allow us to arrive after dark. We will take 2 vehicles, Green's SUV and Jackson's coupe. Jackson and Thompson will ride in the coupe while Green and I will ride in the SUV. We will set up our session in the SUV so as to allow for a quick departure if anything spooky happens. We will leave any weapons or sharp objects back at the base. Spirits can only harm others by proxy. If there are no objects around to throw, or possess somebody into using, then the only physical danger will be soiling our underwear. In the event of one of us feeling creeped out beyond belief, or an impending sense of doom, we will give an obvious signal to the others to quickly pack up and take off. Each soldier will return to the vehicle they traveled in and take off back to the base. Upon leaving the scene, the vehicles will immediately establish contact via cell phone to ensure safety and sharing a moment of, holy shit, what the hell just happened? So it was settled. We had our plan and we were feeling confident. The undead were no match for Arizona's finest soldiers. We parked in the same lot that we had the night before and eagerly took out the Ouija board. There were 4 of us now and we were feeling confident. But I won't lie if I told you that I was jittery as hell. Literally everything that I knew about life in the universe at this point was challenged by what we had seen the previous night. I felt like the equivalent of somebody who discovers a 6-inch tall genie in their closet that they can only talk to. It literally felt surreal, like a movie. Green was especially nervous about being with us as he was raised Catholic. Though he was no longer religious, he still had that strongly ingrained fear of Ouija boards. Green opted to just spectate as we placed the piece on the board. There were 3 of us controlling it. We started by asking if anybody else was there, and we received a very slow, strained yes. I asked if it was the same being that we had talked to the previous night, and it said, no. Going off the same theme as last night, I wanted to mindfuck the ghost. I didn't want to give it the opportunity to be creepy, and I wanted it to answer questions that nobody would think to ask. I wanted to expose the ghost's vulnerabilities. As of now, the ghost was this mysterious, all-powerful being. However, as any logical person knows, the paranormal is just science not yet discovered. The ghost must have limits, I thought. It isn't God and therefore it has things it cannot do, things it cannot have. So I came up with a bright idea to ask. What is the one thing that you want that you can't have? Life, it answered. I wasn't sure whether to feel like an ass, an idiot, or both. Before I could decide between shame and stupidity, the interior light in Green's brand new SUV flickered. Holy shit, that doesn't just happen. The only time that I've ever seen a light flicker in a car was when it was being started. This was getting a little bit too real. This spirit was an alpha and it was asserting its ethereal dominance. After regaining my composure, I began to brainstorm my questions. You've been asking it all the questions. Let me give it a try. Thompson contested me. Fine, go ahead, I said. What do you want from us? He asked in his defiant Georgia accent. Stev. Dude, there's no way, I thought to myself. My name is Steven and all, but there is no N. At this point, I was terrified. No one there knew my first name but Thompson. Also, the piece was moving in a puppeted fashion, away from Thompson when it spelled it out. The best way I could describe it was an invisible thread, straight from the front of the car pulling the piece, based on how it twisted and turned. There was no one in front of the car. Before I could even react, the center console, which was about 5 inches ajar, closed by itself. I calmly invoked our military plan of action. Okay guys, it just spelled out my first name. Let's get the hell out of here. No one said a word or hesitated for a second. Thompson and Jackson scrambled out of the SUV and into Jackson's Eclipse. Green and I piled into the front seat of the SUV. Green immediately shifted to drive and peeled out of the dusty lot. I'm not sure if Ford Escape had ever been used in such a literal fashion. Green was in shock and so was I. My atheist brain was questioning if God might actually be real, and Green's devout brain was pondering the opposite. Our trance was broken by Green's alt-rock ringtone. It was surreal hearing pop culture in that moment, and when our brains were so far removed from reality. Green answered the phone. It was Jackson and Thompson. Their car wouldn't start. They never even left Tombstone. Green slammed on the brake and bangs a U-turn that would put Vin Diesel into diapers. He floors the modest SUV. We were going about 100 miles per hour heading down Arizona 82, back towards Tombstone. Dude, slow the hell down, I yelled at him. At this point, I was far more afraid of Green's driving than the spirits. They're our friends, we can't leave them there. We knew the general direction back to Tombstone and we arrived rather quickly. Tombstone isn't as tiny as you would imagine, and we couldn't quite remember where we had actually parked at. As I am trying to figure out where we are, Green freaks the hell out. Oh my god! What, dude? I can't, I'm not driving the car anymore. What are you talking about? I can't move. As if it couldn't get any more frightening, I realized in the middle of Green's outburst that we had inadvertently ended up at the parking lot we had left at. I'm always trying to think logically, so I deduced the following. At this point, two things are possible. 1. Green is possessed by a butthurt ghost who basically told me to check my living privilege. Or 2. Green is experiencing a psychotic breakdown. Either one of those is a threat to our safety at this point, so I just started shouting at him with simple commands. If he was possessed or simply psychotic, simple instructions were the best course of action. Green, stop the car! I ordered in a commanding voice. Eventually, logic and reason fought over whatever possessed him and he pulled over. I switched seats with him and I began driving. Right after I took over, Jackson called and let us know that they were safe and about 10 miles down the road towards base. Green was still in a trance, but once we got about a quarter mile from ground zero, whatever had triggered him without warning originally had left. This leads me to believe that if ghosts are real, they have an effective possession range of about a quarter mile. Throughout the ride, we struggled to comprehend what had happened that night. Green told me that he could tell me that the ghost wanted me, and that it was telling him to drive down an alley, but that he came to his senses in time. He said that it wanted me bad, and that it wanted him to kill me. It probably would have had him attack me before he left, but our premeditated escape took it by surprise, so it stalled Jackson's car to lure us back. I asked him why it didn't just kill me itself, and he told me, "Probably because I'm bigger than you and more emotional. You think very logically. You're a lot harder for a spirit to manipulate. Plus, I was in control of the car." This made sense, and it was pretty chilling to think about. If the spirit had succeeded, it would have simply hit the news as "Soldier murders other soldier in Tombstone. PTSD suspected." I imagine that's the case when you hear about a mother spontaneously drowning their children in a bathtub, or other inexplicable murder-suicides. It's probably a ghost or a spirit, but it gets blamed on psychosis. About halfway back to base, we stopped at a gas station. Green, still not completely in his right mind, opened the hatch on his SUV, and took out a sunshade that came with his car and threw it in the dumpster. "What did you do that for?" "I don't know, it just felt evil. Really evil," he answered. That was the final straw on how real it was. It really drove in how much this was probably not an elaborate prank. Why would he go to the extent of throwing away an expensive OEM part of his car, just to freak me out when I was already emotionally exhausted? To this day, I am still an atheist, but I do wonder about the paranormal, as it could very well be science not yet discovered. I would imagine that communicating with a spirit is the equivalent of trying to talk to an invisible man in the room, who cannot touch anything. His only way of communicating is holding a portable fan, and blowing paper suspended by a string from the ceiling. He blows it right for yes and left for no. I imagine this is why they communicate in such slow and brief answers. I did a little more research on the location and I posted a map and pictures for you guys below. Ironically, we were in the parking lot for the OK Corral, the famous haunted house location where the outlaws had their shootout in the 1800s. From what I can gather, the gunfight happened well after 1867, but keep in mind that we talked to two separate spirits. I can't help but wonder if the second one was one of them.